Okay, so moving on to step 3, this is probably the hardest step or the most intricate, and it's worth the most points, so we want to make sure we do a good job. So starting off, it's asking us with our right sides of the fabric on the inside, fold the bag in half with the top stitch edge at the top. Okay, so what's going to happen here is we want to make sure that the wrong side of our fabric is facing us, and we're going to hold on to the ends of our top stitch and we're going to fold it in half. So we want the right side, the pretty sides, to be together. You want to make sure that you match up the top corners, okay, because this is the top part of your bag. Okay, so once those are matching, then you want to go down your bag and make sure the other sides are all equal. I like to lay mine down, holding on to the top stitch here, and then just kind of smoothing it out. Usually when you smooth it out, then it just kind of falls into place. Sometimes I take my nails and just kind of slide it if it needs to be moved just a little bit, but I want to make sure that it's laying pretty flat, but again, my top, most important that those are equal. Okay, so once that looks pretty good, I'm going to take a pin and I'm going to pin the top part together. Okay. So then I can go ahead, lay it down again and just kind of smooth it, making sure it's equal. Once I have that first pin, I want to measure my markings. Okay. So we need to mark 1.5 inches from the top and 2.5 inches from the top. This is creating the gap that is going to be for our cording to wind through. Okay, so it's really important that we leave that open. So I'm going to take my ruler, I'm going to line it up at the very top of my fabric, and I'm going to measure down 1.5 inches, and I'm going to put a little dot or a little mark. Then I'm going to measure, again from the same position, down 2.5 inches. So that is leaving 1 full inch gap for my hole for the cording. Okay. So what I like to do is I like to put pins right along these marks, just as a tool to kind of help me remember that's where I need to stop and start. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and finish pinning along the side of the fabric, and I want to make sure that the top of my pin is far enough out that I can take it out easy as I sew. So again, just making sure that my fabric's nice and flat, that the edges are matching. If for some reason yours isn't, we will want to trim those up later. But for now, mine are matching, so we're just going to keep going. Okay, so now I've done the side of my tote bag, and now I need to pin the bottom. We do not need to worry about the other side of our bag because it's a fold. So once we sew these two parts of the bag, then this part's just a fold and it's going to be there. Okay, so now that I have it all pinned, I'm going to move to my, my next step here. It's asking us to stitch along the 5/8 mark on our sewing machine. So when we come up to our machine here, we're going to locate where it says 5/8, and that is the second to last line on your needle plate. So it's this line right here. It says 5/8. So once I put my fabric there, you can see that I've lined it up on that 5/8 mark. Right, so as we've learned before, we need to make sure that we backstitch at the beginning and the end of each time we sew. So I'm going to slide my machine a little closer to me here. Okay, so I have the edge of my fabric lined up at the 5/8 of an inch mark, and I'm going to go ahead and set my presser foot down. So I will start by backstitching. Okay, then I'm sewing and I'm stopping at my first mark. Okay, so I'm going to slow down a little bit. I'm going to take my hand wheel, just get my needle down on that last stitch, and then I'm going to backstitch. Okay, and then I'll take it out and then cut it. Okay, so I backstitch at the beginning and then I sew to the first mark, and then I backstitched again. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and come back, and I'm going to start again at my second mark. So I'm leaving this part unsewn. Okay, so I'm going to take my fabric, line it up at the 5/8 of an inch mark. And then again, I like to backstitch first, so I've started a little bit ahead of my dot, and I'm just going to backstitch right to where I need. Okay, and then here I am. So I'm lining it up on the 5/8 of an inch mark, and I'm just watching that as I'm sewing. Okay, so once I get close to the edge here, I'm going to slow down because I want to make sure that I pivot, and when I pivot, I want it to be right at 5/8. So just for now, I think I'm still a little bit behind where I need to go. My needle is down. Okay, you can take your hand wheel and wheel it down, but mine's already there. I'm going to go ahead and lift up and rotate. Okay, as I rotate, as I pivot, you're going to see that I'm not lined up where I need to be. So I'm going to go back, set it back down. I'm going to use my hand wheel because I don't trust myself to use my foot to just go just a little bit. So I'm going to do a couple of stitches. My needle is down. I'm going to lift up, and then I'm pretty close to my mark. Sometimes you kind of get in no man's land depending on the length of your stitches. So you could try to go back a little bit and see if that helps. Get you right back on. Okay, there we go. So I'm lined up right there at 5/8 of an inch. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead and sew. Again, watching 5/8 of an inch there. And then once I get to the end, I'm going to backstitch again. And take it out, cut it, and then there I am. I have my stitches at 5/8 of an inch. I backstitch both of my marks. Okay, sew down, pivot, sew back, backstitch.